There is a mountain of recovery information out there these days for chronic fatigue syndrome and long COVID. I know because despite having successfully gotten past this and fully recovered after 10 long years of ME/CFS, I still spend much of my time digging through it all. Think of me as your really dedicated and completely free research assistant. Whether I'm just relaxing by the pool or out for a run or at the gym or walking my dogs, I am reading about or listening to books and podcasts about the mind-body connection with healing. In this video, I'm going to take all of that information that's out there and summarize it for you here, right now, in just a few minutes. So all killer, no filler. This is the type of video that has the potential to put some of those really pricey brain retraining programs out of business, because I'm going to give it all to you right now, right here, for free. I'm going to cover three things. What's happening in your body, the one thing that this all boils down to, and the proven strategy to make your symptoms stop. So the first thing, what's happening in your body? And the number one key point on this, if you are facing a mind-body condition and know that different people call this different things, Alan Gordon, founder of the Pain Psychology Center here in California, calls this neuroplastic pain. Dr. John Sarno, an early pioneer in mind-body medicine, calls this tension myositis syndrome, or TMS. And some more modern-day doctors, such as Dr. Will Bostock, who I've interviewed here on the channel, often refer to this as a functional illness. Whatever term people use for this, know that this is when there is no mechanical or structural damage in your body. You've had all of the tests done, everything comes back fine, and it is your brain and your autonomic nervous system that is causing the symptoms. And if you are unsure if this might be the case for you, there is a free checklist in this video's description that you can download to help you assess this. Key point number 2 on this, know what your symptoms are saying to you. It's important to understand that symptoms, whether you have ME/CFS or not, don't come out of nowhere or happen at random. The brain purposefully constructs symptoms, and they are always a warning signal, a danger signal, an alarm sounded by your brain to get your attention and protect you in some way. So if you're eating something poisonous or touching something hot or have a broken bone, your brain is going to make sure that you know that this is happening. And your body sends a message to your brain, letting it know what's going on, and then the brain constructs and dispatches these symptoms into your body so that you feel nausea or a burning sensation or you feel pain. All of these unpleasant symptoms that you feel are always danger signals to you to help you best keep yourself alive and thriving. Key point number 3 on this. Your brain can also construct symptoms in the absence of any physical, mechanical, or structural damage in your body. And that is what is happening in the cases of these mind-body conditions, or whatever you choose to call them. Something really important to know about this, and this is where a lot of people get confused or misunderstand what's happening. With mind-body conditions, the symptoms themselves are just as real as the ones constructed by your brain in those other circumstances I mentioned with the structural damage. Just with the mind-body conditions, in these cases, they are just not signaling any physical damage or danger to your body. Okay, so as much as this is a newer way of understanding things, science has only in the last couple of decades started revealing how the brain works, the autonomic nervous system works, how pain is constructed and dispatched in the body. I think that most of us here in this space are starting to have a fairly good understanding of that. So let's move on to the next 2 parts that I told you were coming in this video, because this is where it starts to get quite a bit more complicated, or it can feel more complicated and confusing. So I'm going to make it really, really simple for you. So the second thing I promised you, what does this all boil down to? What is the one thing this all comes down to? What does this mean for you? When we distill it down to its core, when we take all of that information that's out there on this topic, what it boils down to is this one thing. The cause of the onset of these chronic symptoms and the fuel for the continuation of these chronic symptoms is just one thing. It all boils down to one thing. It's fear. Fear triggers our body's threat assessment systems, and the body reacts and alerts us to this danger with symptoms. But where is this fear coming from? You're probably asking yourself, which is a great question, my hypothetical friend. There are three main places that this symptom-causing fear comes from. One reason, or one place that this fear comes from, was discovered by and observed by Dr. John Sarno, the OG in this mind-body space. And he witnessed this in his vast work with patients spanning decades. Dr. Sarno found that suppressed emotions, most often anger, rage, or shame, were the reason for these chronic symptoms. In our modern world, we have pressure to behave in certain ways. Social media tells us we should be perfect, that men should never be sad, that women should never be mad, and that we should always like our children, that we should be happy at work and grateful for our job, no matter how long the hours or how horrible our boss might be. We spend a lot of time trying to pretend we feel a certain acceptable way and that everything is okay. When, if we were honest with ourselves, a lot of us would have to admit that we don't actually feel okay, that we are going through life with this mask that we put on for others out in the world that says, I'm okay, everything's okay, this is all fine, when it's really not fine. And when people resist and suppress strong emotions, meaning that they fear these unacceptable emotions, they push them down and they pretend they aren't there. And as a result, the brain and the nervous system registers danger, and the brain constructs symptoms in the body, according to Dr. John Sarno, as a distraction, ultimately as a way to protect us from these dangerous emotions and to keep us safe. And here's a second place that fear can come from. Alan Gordon, who I mentioned earlier, and Dr. Howard Schubiner, the clinical director at the Freedom for Chronic Pain Clinic, explain that these chronic mind-body symptoms that they refer to as neuroplastic symptoms are a mistake. They are essentially false alarms. The best way I've heard this explained to help you understand what is happening here with these mistake symptoms or false alarms was in an interview that I did with Dr. Will Bostock from Cambridge Progressive Medicine here on the channel. And he explained it like this. It's as if you have a car, and quite often when you're out driving your car, the check engine light comes on. But every time the light comes on, you check your engine, everything's fine. You take it to a mechanic, to every kind of car specialist, they're like, nope, your engine is fine. And then the next time you're out, that check engine light comes on again. So what is in fact happening is that the issue is the check engine light. It's not the engine. So essentially it's like a software problem, not a hardware problem. So what is happening now with many cases we're seeing of ME/CFS and now also sometimes long COVID is that these symptoms that you're experiencing are danger signals, like warning lights, dispatched by the brain in error. They're a mistake. And the fuel that keeps these mistake symptoms going, the fuel that makes them chronic, is fear. So the more you react in fear to these symptoms, the more you signal to your brain and your autonomic nervous system that something is in fact wrong. And you can get stuck in this pain-fear cycle that can keep going and get you to a point as bad as being bedbound. And Alan Gordon and Dr. Howard Schubiner use something to get past these mistake symptoms called pain reprocessing therapy. And I have a video coming out on the channel very soon walking you through how to do pain reprocessing therapy by yourself from home, step by step. So if you haven't already subscribed, you might want to subscribe if you don't want to miss that. And a third reason for the fear that can be causing these symptoms can be stemming from a hypersensitive or dysregulated nervous system. Our bodies evolved to thrive in a world that looks nothing like the one that we now live in, with all our modern day technology and stress and traffic jams and the news and on and on. We can get stuck in a fear response. You can get stuck in a high alert state with your fight or flight continually engaged because you are feeling under threat much of the time. So chronic anxiety, chronic fear, trouble relaxing, these are all signs that you're always on high alert and you can be stuck in that fear response. And as we know, when the nervous system detects danger, it alerts us with symptoms. And in this foreign, strange, stressful world that we now live in, that our nervous system didn't evolve to learn how to detect threat, it can get sort of stuck or in this dysregulated state, detecting threats all over the place, when in fact, we are fine. In the end, all three of these reasons, all of this, it all just boils down to fear. And now that you know this, what do you do with this information? What does this mean for you? What is next? All right, the third thing I promised you, proven way to make your symptoms stop. Now that you know everything that you know, what do you do with this? How do you make your way past this? It's with something called the Trident Method. And the first prong of the Trident Method is to understand what's going on. What is happening with these conditions? And this is the great news, is that you already did that. You might have understood before you even put on this video. So congratulations. You are seriously already most of the way there. But keep taking in as much information as you can from as many different sources as you can. Hear this explained in many different ways, because each person will say something in a slightly different way that will just really help things to click for you and keep solidifying it. Just taking in this information is brain retraining in itself. There are lots of great people out there sharing information. There is Ben Aarons. He has his own YouTube channel for his Reorigin brain retraining program. Great stuff there. There is Dan Buglio. He puts out amazing, amazing things. I've interviewed them both on the channel. I'll link their YouTube channels and their interviews on my channel in the video description. I highly recommend checking them out. Everything these guys say is just pure gold. And also check out, I have over 175 recovery interviews here on the channel. Many, 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 the overwhelming majority of people talking about their recovery from a mind-body approach. And they can explain things in really incredible ways, including some coaches and other people who just have really great expertise. The second prong of the Trident is to eliminate fear around symptoms and activities, because the fuel that keeps these symptoms going in chronic is your reaction to the symptoms and your reaction to the activities that you associate with these symptoms. So let's look at symptoms first. When symptoms come on, if you react with fear and panic, this just reinforces to your nervous system that something is in fact very wrong, and you can get caught in that pain, symptom, fear cycle, and it can just keep getting worse and worse and worse. Instead, what you need to do is to react neutrally to symptoms, to reframe the way you think about them. And some people have told me they have even been able to go as far as to embrace symptoms when they come on. And I know that's a big ask, but think about it this way. Every single time a symptom comes on, this is a chance to rewire your brain and get yourself past this, because you need to change the way you respond to symptoms. You need to work on eliminating that fear so that your brain and nervous system will stop creating and dispatching these symptoms, and you can move past this. I'm going to share a story from my life for you to think of and use if it's helpful for when symptoms come up, to help you to react in this neutral way. So for a while, I was living in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, and my apartment was on the 29th floor in my apartment building. And not too long after I'd moved there, the fire alarm went off. And I went out in the hallway, I found the stairs, I started walking down the stairs, but in time I started to really panic. At first I'm like, oh, it's probably nothing serious. But then I thought, what if it is? I'm on the 29th floor. So before long, I was running down the stairs, and I was running down the stairs like hordes of other people running down the stairs, which just made the panic and the fear worse and worse. I think we just fed off of each other. Think of this like a Facebook group where everyone just keeps talking about their symptoms and you really start to panic. Not a good thing. But so we're going down the stairs, we get outside, the fire trucks come, it's this whole big scene. Everyone's like, what's happening? It's this big, dramatic, scary event for virtually everyone involved. And it's in the middle of the night. And in time, after what felt like an eternity, they let us back into the building and told us that it was in fact a false alarm. Nothing was wrong. We could take the elevators back up, no more stairs, and life went on. And then over the next series of upcoming weeks and months, this alarm kept going off again and again and again. And the next time it went off, I still leapt out of my apartment. I went to the stairs, but I didn't run this time. I walked kind of fast, just in case. I'm like, this happened before, but I'm not going to kill myself running down the stairs. And it was nothing. And then it happened again, took my time down the stairs, got outside, waited again, it was nothing. And it happened so much that in time, the fire alarm would go off and I wouldn't even move. I'm like, I know the drill. It's always nothing. Like, I'm not freaking out. I'm not panicking. I'm not running down the stairs. I'm not acting like something dangerous is happening. I just sit in my apartment until it passed. And it was unpleasant because, as you probably know, they make fire alarms ear-piercingly loud. Like, they're painful. They're hard to endure because they want to make sure that you don't ignore it, that you can't ignore it, that it gets your attention. But I was just sit there, not scared, kind of annoyed having to listen to this siren, but I knew that everything was fine. The building was fine. It was just the alarm that was broken. So this is what is happening with your symptoms and the way that you need to think about them when they come up. In addition to eliminating fear around symptoms, we also need to eliminate our fear around activities and experiences, because, as they say in the world of neuroscience, what fires together wires together. So if enough activities or enough experiences or places seem to cause you pain, cause you symptoms, you start that rewiring process in your brain, that fires together, and all of a sudden that activity equals symptoms every time. That is the brain retraining that has happened. So it's also about slowly, at a very gentle and gradual pace, reincorporating normal activity to your life and not reacting to this activity with fear. I interviewed someone on the channel. She is amazing. Her name is Louise. I can link it up on the screen if you want to check it out. Incredible interview. She was very resistant to brain retraining for years before she finally opened her mind to it, and it eventually allowed her to fully recover. But she explained that there were times where she could walk around her home and she was okay. Like, she could walk to the kitchen, she could walk to the bathroom, walk around to the bedrooms. She would feel okay. But the minute she walked out the front door of her house and just went down her front sidewalk, just right in her yard, she would have massive symptom flares and feel really sick. And this is one of the pieces of evidence that helped her start to open her mind to the fact that maybe this is a mind-body condition. How come I can walk on this side of the door and feel fine, but I can't walk on that side of the door and feel okay? She had fired and wired together in her brain, going outside equals danger equals symptoms. So just walking out that front door was enough to make her feel sick. An important piece of this is your vocabulary. The words we use can have a tremendous impact on this fear, pain cycle. One woman shared in one of my support squad calls. We have these live group calls for the people who take my Brain Retraining 101 program. And she shared in this call that every time she called something exercise, she'd feel worse. But as soon as she changed the language around it, just called it an activity or movement, then all of a sudden she felt fine. So it's just about identifying these things that are triggering fear and working on rewiring that whole situation and eliminating the fear so the symptoms will stop. And just like with phobia treatment, because that's essentially what this is, it's a sort of gradual re-exposure therapy, it's going to be most effective if you do it slowly. If you had a fear of water, you wouldn't suddenly just have someone drop you in the middle of the ocean and think, okay, I'm just going to get past my fears. You'd probably start by looking at a picture of water and then maybe walking near some water and then maybe putting a toe in and so forth, and just keep slowly, gradually re-immersing yourself in, literally and physically into the water, while giving yourself and reminding yourself that you're safe and giving those messages of safety as you do it, which is transitioning us right into the third prong of this trident. So once you have faced the fear around symptoms and activities, it is to slowly start to resume normal activity and reincorporate normal activities into your life. And the important part, the key point, of this third trident is your mindset while you're doing it. Don't turn your recovery into some sort of big, stressful job or chore that you're taking on, and be sure to be very kind to yourself as you work your way through this. Have a lot of self-compassion, a lot of patience with the process. Know that this takes time. Know that rapid recovery and success is the exception. It is not the norm. Know that you can be struggling with your recovery and still recovering, and that you don't have to believe in it every minute of every day for it to work. You can have doubts and still be recovering. And know this, if you are currently facing a functional illness, it's not that you're gonna be okay one day soon. It's that you're actually okay now. Put the Trident Method into practice, trust the process, and you will get there. If you found value in this video, please consider subscribing and liking the video, and I'll link here on the screen an interview I did with Dr. Will Bostock. He is having incredible success at the long COVID clinic that he runs in the UK using these sorts of mind-body approaches with his patients. This stuff really does work. This is packed full of insights from an expert on the topic. I know you will enjoy it. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got tons out of it, and I hope to see you in this next one.